And we're live. Okay, awesome. Welcome back, all our Sparksters out there, the Spark community. It's been a few weeks that we've had a break. We haven't had a spaces for a while, but it's not like things are not happening. We've had a very exciting week this week alone. On Tuesday, we launched our very own Spark Data Hub, which obviously takes the industry, in my opinion, to a very exciting new level of transparency. And it's just your source of truth for everything Spark related and ecosystem related. So if you haven't seen it yet, go over to data.spark.fi and take a look at all of the data verifiable across everything from Spark liquidity layers, Spark lend borrows, and saving deposits. So very exciting cornerstone of what Spark is all about, obviously around transparency. But with that in mind, we're back for Spark Spaces episode 8 this week, and we've got a very special guest and some newcomers to the team that we want to obviously introduce. And we will be talking about the very exciting partnership that we launched yesterday with the Pendle team. Dan's from Pendle. We've got Sarah Grace, who is our head of DeFi growth. And we've got a regular visitor and guest on our side, MonetSupply. So all of you guys, welcome to the show. Very excited to have you here. And the Pendle project partnership launched yesterday. TVL locked is looking very good. We've got excitement in the market happening, which is fantastic. But of course, Dan, you're working across 200 or so partners, so maybe you're not as excited as we are, but we're very excited about this partnership. But welcome, Dan. Do you want to just do a brief intro to yourself, and then obviously for our audience to understand a little bit more about Pendle, and then we'll go around the room. We can have a brief intro to Sarah, and of course, Monet, we can reintroduce you. Dan?
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I'll, 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 I'd say I'm just as excited for the launch as you are. It'll be. I guess I'm jumping a little bit too far here, but I think this is the first instance that we just launch just a naked asset with just pure points, and the asset is not even like the main product of you guys' product. So I find that just extremely interesting. But I'll get to that later. But I guess a brief intro for me would be, yeah, I'm Dan. If you guys haven't heard of me already, I lead the marketing and growth team on Pendle. And if you guys haven't already heard about Pendle, we are a yield tokenization protocol where you can tokenize the yield of any yield bearing asset into a separate token called YT, where it basically receives all the yields and proceeds of an asset, including points. Um, and the remainder would be what we call the principal. So we represent it as principal token, and that generates fixed yield until maturity. I'll go deeper into how all of this works later in the session if I have the opportunity to. But point is, we let users take more freedom with anything that generates yield or points. Basically, for users who are degen, they can get more exposure into yield or points if they think that's going up. For people who are more risk averse, like institutions, they can just go for PTs for fixed yield, for a simple fixed yield exposure. And people who are, just looking for additional yield on top of their simple holdings, they can just provide liquidity under Pendle and earn yield on top of their base assets.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Dan. Yeah, we will go into a little bit more detail on that because very fascinating stuff, and obviously where the market is heading. So very exciting to be partnered with you on this. Sarah, how are you doing on your side? And just a brief intro to you, your role, and what you do at Spark.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to meet you guys. It's like the first time I'm in the space. So, yeah, just a brief intro. I'm currently leading the growth at Spark, specifically in the DeFi area side of things. So, I've been in the space for 4 years plus. Happy to join like the space with the Pendle team and also MonetSupply as well.
Awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much. Monet, you there, mate?
Yes, yes.
How's it going?
Excited to be on.
Awesome. Welcome. You've been on a few spaces with us already, but for the new listeners, obviously with the Pendle audience, they might not be very familiar with who you are. Maybe a bit of a brief intro on your side.
Yeah. So I'm a partner at Block Analytica. We do risk consulting and data for DeFi projects, and most importantly, we are the risk contributor for Spark. And yeah, we're also huge fans of Pendle. We've been kind of interfacing with Pendle products, PTs, and some of our other work with Spark and Sky and such. So yeah, really excited to be on.
Yeah, Monet, it's been awesome working with you. Very knowledgeable in the space, and every time you either tweet or post something on Telegram, I'm learning. So very happy to be working very closely with you. Awesome, guys. Let's kick into the content. We've only got half an hour for this session, so we might rush through some things, but of course, this will be shared on all socials. We are currently live on X, but it's recorded, so yeah, bear with us. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of exciting things to talk about. Dan, a lot of questions are focused to you, so I hope you don't feel too much on the spot here. But give us a bit of an insight. I mean, Pendle's come a long way. You established a few years ago. You have pivoted to a fair degree. How has Pendle evolved over the last year, and why do you think this evolution of Pendle is so important for the way the market is headed?
Yeah, appreciate it. The core thesis of Pendle has not changed ever since the founding days. Just to give a bit of context, Pendle started in 2021, and the ideas, was kickstarted back in late 2020, actually, during DeFi summer, when we were seeing 4 or 5 digit APYs, and we were yield farming participants back then. And we were thinking, how do we lock in those rates? Because the 4 or 5 digit APYs would flee in a couple of days, and we figured that there's no way to do it in DeFi at the moment, and we started looking into solutions, drawing inspirations from typical financial products, and we figured that we can build a interest rate swap product or on DeFi, and then that's what we decided to do, and that's how Pendle V1 started. And Pendle V2 again started launched in 2022 to improve on Pendle V1's architecture, just to improve on capital efficiency and make the AMM so much more robust. And now here we are with Pendle V2, and been trying to figure our way to just grow the protocol as much as possible. The whole product has not changed, mostly adding new features here and there, but the core thesis remains the same. We found our first glimpse of adoption during the GLP saga back in 2020 2023, and been just a steady growth ever since. And at the peak of the mania was when we started tokenizing points during eigenlayer times, and and we've been sustaining that growth ever since, and just trying to expand beyond where we are right now, and even beyond just DeFi or even crypto, targeting the TradFi folks as well at the moment. So yeah, lots of room to grow, and I think it's a natural evolution for us.
Awesome. Yeah, very much so. Maybe just a little bit of insight around PT and YT. And why do you think whales are so eager on PTs lately? Or is it not lately? Have they always been interested? What's the theory around that?
Yeah. So, without diving too deep into the mechanics, just know that a token can be split into two parts. One is the yield bearing part, just generate yield. We call it yield token, YT, and the remaining will be the principal, PT. Think of PT as zero coupon bonds, and akin to most financial participants, the people who are into zero coupon bonds are generally people who are more risk averse. And people who are into the pure coupon side are speculating on the yield of the asset. So to your question, most large capitals are more interested in PT because it's simple yield, and for USDS example, would be one PT USDS will be redeemable for one USDS at maturity. So right now it's trading at below one USDS, and at maturity it will be one USDS. So it's a very simple product, and a lot of people are very interested in its simplicity, and that's how we got most of the whales to be attracted to PT. However, majority of the addresses actually interact with YT. These are, I would say, mostly retails or degens try to speculate on the yield and the value of the proceeds of the underlying token. For our case here, it will be the pure spark points of USDS, and that's what I expect people would want to speculate as time passed. As we know, have deepen the liquidity a little bit more, and people start coming in to buy YT.
So just a little bit of a divergence from some of the questions, but so retail very risk aligned, and institutions very risk averse. Do you think that is changing with the macros, the uncertainty around macros, or is that split pretty clear?
I would say I would say you're right that most retails are more risk on, while more entities are more risk averse. But that also comes from the size of capital, right? Retails tend to come in with a very small sizes, and that's they're looking for exponential growth. Just like how majority of stock players are. I would say retails, funds do play around it, but majority of the bonds participants are retail is completely out of it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see that changing in anytime soon. I think it's just nature of the market. Smaller funds will tend to be more aggressive in hunting for opportunities, while bigger funds are in capital preservation mode.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, spotlight off you for a second, Dan. Well, let's drop off over to Sarah. Sarah, very proud of you and what you've managed to achieve in terms of this partnership. From a marketing point of view, fantastic job. So kudos to you. Let's talk about the partnership a little bit more in detail. Firstly, how did it come about, and what exactly is this new USDC pool, USDS pool, and how did the partnership come about? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think just for those of you who are not familiar with like USDS from the first principle, USDS is actually the third largest stablecoins by market cap, right after Tether and USDC, currently standing at around like I think $7.3 billion. So it's actually an over collateralized like stablecoin, which is backed by different assets under the hood like ETH, Repstick ETH, RWAs, etc. So it's built by the Sky team or the ex MegaDAO team. So we have always been like partners with the Pendle team all this while. So for instance, Spark has onboarded like using PTSUSD and PTEUSD as collateral for our Spark DAI vaults on Morpho. For those of you who are familiar with like looping strategies, etc., so you can actually earn like a higher yield beyond just the fixed PT trades yield with this partnership right in the future. And I would say that this partnership is a natural evolution from just like indirectly using Pendle's token, but it's also a way for us to deepen our collaboration with the Pendle team as well.
Yeah, spot on, Sarah. Extremely. Okay, Sarah, still with you. What's the core value add for Spark for having a USDS pool on Pendle?
Yeah, I think essentially it creates like a way for people to not just stake the stable coins to receive like SUSDS yield at 4.5% APY set by the Sky governance, but it sort of allows users to earn like a higher implied yield by speculating on the future yield of USDS, or even for the PT traders to lock in with the fixed yield, like what Dan mentioned. So I think at a macro level, beyond just deepening the liquidity of USDS, we also see it as a way, number one, to unlock more composability around the DeFi strategies using like USDS, especially on fixed yield plays and also yield speculation. And secondly, I think it's also very important to mention as well that this is a crucial go to market strategy for us to onboard more users into the USDS ecosystem, because we do see like more sophisticated DeFi players and also the PT buyers, mainly making up of like whales and institution, especially from like Asia, who are really like active on Pendle front. So we want to tap onto that as well.
Yeah, very well said. Dan, back to you. Why do you think USDS was such a good fit for Pendle?
Honestly, because of its simplicity. Um, uh, it The more complicated the yield token is, the yield bearing token is, generally we see less adoption on Pendle. So we supported the most successful asset is Ethena. It's very simple. SUSD generates yield and points. That did pretty well. And we also supported very big assets like LP tokens on say Uniswap that was generating crazy volume. But frankly, the yield proceeds from LP tokens is not as straightforward as just simple points, and people tend to be more are more wary of those. And USDS, I think, takes it to a different level. It's just extremely simple. There's no yield bearing portion to it. It's just points that Spark is giving, and it is a simple ERC20 token deposit. And its simplicity, I think, will appeal to a lot of larger players because, frankly speaking, the risk associated to it is very simple. It's either USDS itself getting exploited, which is extremely unlikely, or just the Pendle contracts risk. Whereas for most other yield bearing assets, there are a lot of intermediary smart contract risks. until you reach the Pendle level. So in USDS case, it's like an extremely simple asset that I find pretty attractive, or should be pretty attractive for most people. And to not to mention that it's the third largest stablecoin, and because of that simplicity, I find that having pretty high hopes in the weeks to come for USDS.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge amount of beauty and simplicity. It's the old sort of Japanese term that, and I think also when it comes to DeFi, there is so much offering. There's so much complexity out there that it becomes almost like a full-time job. I was asking Sarah the other day, like, why doesn't everyone just loop? Because it becomes such a time-consuming activity itself. So simplicity is the way forward to onboard, obviously, everyone, in terms of the unbanked large portion of the world. So I couldn't agree with you more, Dan. Monet, not to keep you on the sideline for any longer, Sarah mentioned composability. I'd like to understand from your perspective, what do you think some composability strategies are for other DeFi, and how do you think this is lending itself to Spark and, of course, the entire Sky or Star ecosystem?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential because many DeFi protocols, they already have exposure to USDS or DAI. They're already comfortable with these assets. And when you look at something like a PT or like an LP, um, and you compare it to kind of the exposure you get with DAI, it's actually not much different. There's a little bit of like duration risk essentially, so the price can fluctuate somewhat when you're looking at a PT versus the underlying asset, but um, it's a duration of less than a year, so the price volatility is expected to be quite low. So I think a lot of different protocols, if we see this market start to size up and see some decent TVL, it's a pretty simple and low lift opportunity for them to onboard it as collateral. Um, and I also think the same for products such as like a yield optimizer or like something like a year involved. Um, they're already potentially investing in DAI denominated or USDS denominated assets. So if this is delivering, an extra couple percent of yield, it's an easy win for them to start allocating.
Yeah. Keeping on that point, and of course, this is not financial advice. So please, whoever's listening, do your own research when it comes to anything financial, financial orientated topics. But Monet, just to elaborate maybe a little bit further on some strategies around how to, optimize yield in terms of the greater landscape out there in terms of opportunities. Do you have any insights into some sophisticated strategies, maybe that people both? Okay, let's split it two. So one from a retail perspective, and then maybe from an institutional perspective.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of potential for more sophisticated strategies. It does depend on getting some of these additional integrations in place with like the PTs or the LPs. But one thing that we've seen a lot of times with other protocols is um, or other PTs is it's pretty simple to onboard it to a Morpho pool, and then from there you can lever up on the PT yield. And basically, if your borrow rate on Morpho is lower than the PT yield, you're able to kind of increase your net return. So that's a very interesting strategy. I think I haven't actually seen cases so far where the LP token has been considered as like a Morpho collateral asset, but I think um, that's got a lot of interesting potential as well because in many cases the LP token from Pendle actually earns a bit higher of yield than even the PT. Um, so if that's the case, you can even extract a little bit more alpha from the position. And then one other thing which I don't see or hear about too often, but um, if you pair like a borrow position of USDS on Spark, like Sparkland, versus the YT token, um, in a way, you're kind of hedging a little bit of your interest rate, like your borrowing cost risk. Because if rates go up on Sparkland, that means Spark's earning more revenue, and you can uh, potentially speculate that the YT is going to increase in value if Sparkland's revenue is going up. Of course, that's there's a lot of risk to that. It's not necessarily guaranteed that that'll happen, but it's an interesting opportunity for you to kind of like hedge your borrowing cost on Spark products like Sparkland.
we can support sparkling yield to enable that directly if need to, which I find an interesting use case. The Curve USD pool and Pendle, people actually do use that for that exact reason. People hedge their borrowing rate by buying the YT of the Curve USD lending side. So if it's of an interest, I think that can be the next asset from Spark on Pendle.
I think it would be really interesting personally. I think, most like sort of degens, I don't think they really care too much about hedging interest rate risk because they're here for like a 5x. They're not here to like save a couple percent on their interest. But when we get more institutional participants and kind of, yeah, people who are a little less degen, I think that actually is a big selling point.
Yeah, a lot of the big borrowers on Curve USD are actually on Pendle to hedge their borrowing rates, but those are from the wallets that we see are big funds. I think that's definitely possible for Sparklet as well if it's of interest.
Awesome. See, this is where ideas come from, right? So this is great. Cool. Obviously, we launched the partnership yesterday, right? It's going extremely well. We've got, I think it's over $2.2 million or so in terms of TVL, which is pretty good start in less than 24 hours. We've issued over 22 million points so far. So, obviously it's accruing at a very healthy rate. But if you are coming across this partnership for the very first time, you might have some questions. So, Sarah, I'm going to ask you just if you can just give us a very basic walkthrough of the mechanics. You've come across the partnership. Where do you go? What do you have to do? And what do you have to share? And how do you participate in the campaign?
Yeah, sure. I think thanks for the Pendle team, for sort of promoting it on their homepage as well. So I think the first step of how you are gonna like participate in it is of course to go onto the points campaign website. If let's say you do not yet have like a referral code, not to worry too much about that because you can actually skip that and just connect to your wallet, and then you will be able to see like the call to action button that redirect you to the Pendle page to buy PT, YT, or even like LP, right? So that's where you start. And then after that, you will start seeing points being accrued specifically for YT and also LP's position as well. And you will be able to see like your points in real time on the leaderboard. Yeah, so that's just how easy it is.
And of course, refer a friend, right? And
Yes.
you get I think what an additional 10% of the points accrued by the referee, right?
Yep, correct. So you will be getting like 10% of the total points of the referee.
Amazing. Very exciting. Yeah, this is the way forward, right? So very exciting times for both. Of course, Pendle's well versed with this. Very exciting times for Spark ourselves. We're getting into very fast moving, exciting arenas with the top tier projects like Pendle. So it's very very good company to have. Okay, Dan. Just give us some insights. What do you think Pendle's looking like in the next 6 months, 12 months? Do you guys plan even longer than that? What's the story? What's the roadmap and story look like for Pendle?
Yeah, pretty good. If you guys want to recap on a rough roadmap, you can have a look at the pinned tweet on the Pendle official account on Twitter. Is at Pendle_5. But just to give a TLDR, I think Pendle right now we've tapped into most of the yield sources in DeFi at the moment, and I think it's about time for us to push our reach beyond just the EVM chain where we're at, or even beyond crypto. So right now, what we're trying to achieve is inverse RWA in a sense. We're bringing on-chain yield off-chain, basically giving more TradFi institutions, I would say, access to PT yields, because it's yield powered by crypto is something that's kind of unheard of in TradFi. So that's the first focus that we have. The other focus that we have will be Boros. We initially called it Pendle V3, but decided that since it's a completely different product, figured that calling it a different product that complements Pendle V2 works better. So we're calling it Boros, and we're looking at to launch that in the next a couple of months, or a couple of weeks, and yeah, extremely excited for that. Basically, what that does is trading funding rates, and funding rate, if you don't already know, is the yield that has the largest footprint in crypto. Let's just sum up. Bitcoin funding rate alone has more has higher footprint than entire DeFi TVL combined. So that's just from one asset, and we can support funding rates of many different assets from many different exchanges. And funding rate tends to fluctuate from -10 to it can be even 100%, and will be a very interesting thing to trade. And yeah, that's kind of like a rough summary of what's to come. Lots of things to look forward to. Of course, Pendle V2, there's also a lot of things to expect. I think the stablecoin market is getting a lot of attention right now. And naturally, most of our TVL also is coming from stablecoins at the moment. Spark USDS is also one of them.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, cool. Exciting times. Dan, keep us posted, of course. And we're more than happy to amplify and support from our side. And if you're having spaces, I know, we're always up for a discussion. So let us know, and we'll keep a very close eye on that. Monet, just in closing, I know we're running out of a bit of time here, but just in closing, what do you think? You're obviously heavily involved with the USDS strategy. What do you think currently is the most slept on feature or opportunity that sits with USDS at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, like specifically with this Pendle opportunity. So Spark has had it's been live for a few years. It's had various forms of like pre-farming going on for well over a year, including like if you borrow DAI or USDS on Sparkland, if you supply USDS on Aave Core. So there's been ways to kind of get involved in Spark before it kind of like fully launches as an independent DAO. But all these things have been pretty capital intensive. And I think this Pendle pool is maybe like the first opportunity to get involved in a way that's a lot less capital intensive, more capital efficient. So you don't necessarily need to have been having a borrow position for the past year to get a kind of a material involvement there. So I think that's exciting. It's a way for people who are bullish on Spark and they kind of just want to be part of it. Um, in addition to of course joining the Discord, coming to our spaces and stuff, you can get involved with this Pendle pool. Maybe take a look at the YT. Of course, there's a lot of risks there, so you'll want to do your own research on that. But it's an interesting opportunity, which is a lot different than any of the other pre-farming stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, now is the time to join. I think I think we're all here for a reason, but it's in our opinion, top 5 at least protocol, of 2025 and beyond. We're hitting the cylinder, on all fires gassed. And we're also going to be launching an ambassador program very soon. So yeah, now is the time to really get involved in the community fronts. But not only Discord, we've also got Telegram, we've got X that is flourishing. We've got an intern account also, but he's small and growing, not as big as the Pendle intern account, but one day we'll get there. But we love the marketing that Pendle puts out. So very, very cool. There is a question from the community, Dan. It's targeted to you. Tell us about spec, and it's from Crypto Smart Ed. So thanks for the question. We got Dan. Tell us about speculating on perp borrowing rates.
There's no borrowing rate on perps, sadly. What we're speculating on is the funding rates on perps, which is if you don't already know, if assuming funding rate is positive, if you hold a long position, you're paying funding rate to the short position. Meaning, let's say funding rate is 10% APR at the moment. If you hold a long position and you're paying 10% APR, scaled down to whatever time frame the exchange has, and if you have a short position, you receive that yield. A lot of the basis traders or basis trading stablecoins earn the yield from the short leg of the funding rate trades. Now on Boros, we're basically trading in a sense like a YT of the funding rate. So similar to YT of a lending market, you can speculate on if you speculate on it. If you think funding rate is going to go up, you long it. If you think funding rate is going to go down, you short it. And you can also hedge the funding rates by either if you're on the long side, you can hedge your funding rate payments, and if you're on the short side, you can hedge the funding rate receivables. If it's purely an interest rate swap model from TradFi ported into crypto. The problem is back in TradFi, this thing, all of this is done mostly OTC or brokered, and we are creating sort of the first marketplace for it. So there's no equivalent market in TradFi at the moment. A completely new territory that we have no idea how it's going to play out, but I think it's going to be fun for us to try it out.
Fun and experimenting. Brilliant. Thanks, Dan. Cool, guys. Let's look to wrap up. Sarah, Also, a lot of things happening in your space there. Any final thoughts? Obviously, a lot of excitement still pending on the back of the Pendle partnership. Anything else to maybe give some alpha on what's in store, or do you want that to come at a later stage? Up to you.
Yeah, I would say that yeah, look ahead in time towards like 2 3 months on what is gonna happen on Spark. It's definitely a big thing is coming soon. Yeah.
Very subtle. Thank you, Sarah. Awesome. Okay. Sarah, Dan, Monet, thank you so much for joining us on Spark Spaces episode 8. It's been a pleasure having you all here. Dan, as always, also awesome listening to you speak about everything DeFi. Very, very brilliant stuff happening at Pendle. So amazing. Thank you, guys and girls, and thanks for everyone who dialed in. I know it's not the usual time that we have our spaces, but it is recorded, and yeah, we will be sure to share this across all our socials. So give us a follow, join our communities across Discord, X, and Telegram. And as Sarah alluded to, the next few weeks, months are going to be very exciting. And other points, campaigns that are in the pipeline. So, guys, thanks for joining us today. If you can just obviously stick around before we end the broadcast. And yeah, thank you very much for dialing in. Guys, have a great day, and we will speak to you all very soon. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheers, have a
Thank
good one.
you.